Hello, YouTube family. The doc is in episode 9. I wanted to talk about this as I'm seeing a lot of things about this. Usually it's directed towards women, but I want to talk a little bit about workplace bullying and dealing with inappropriate colleagues in the workplace. Um, I've had some really awesome work environments. I think my current work environment is pretty cool. And I've had some that really kind of suck. No lie. Um, I want to talk about a few specific instances wherein I've dealt with workplace bullying for any number of inferred reasons, but I want to talk about that because when we're talking about workplace bullying, a lot of times from a female's point of view, it's usually like some skeezy male coworker who's trying to feel her up or propositioning her inappropriately, what have you. But there are other forms of workplace bullying that take place that I think should be talked about. Let's see, about a year and a half or so, maybe a little more ago, I worked in a prison, which I've mentioned. And I really appreciated what I did there. But one thing that I noticed about the work environment was it was just always a very tense, toxic type work environment. Everybody had this concept of like, oh, they're just looking for a reason to fire you. And literally every coworker that I had told me about this. So I didn't really worry about it. The guy who was like my immediate supervisor, again, God bless him, he was way too old for that job. He was clearly just in, I'm trying to get to retirement status. It's like I'm not old enough to retire, but I just need a job to get through everything. He wasn't clear on what he needed to do. He wasn't clear on what was really being done. And honestly, it's almost like he was just a useless figurehead because they couldn't have a nurse overseeing, mental health professionals because she really didn't have that level of understanding of what really needed to be done clinically. So the bad part about having a supervisor who doesn't know what he's doing is that there's no real backup. You never feel supported, and you always really feel like you're out there on your own. My training there, to be just completely honest, was garbage. They give you a checklist and say, hey, sign off saying that you looked at this or did this or did this. And somebody doing something barely once is never going to be enough to really understand and fully grasp the concept and what needs to be done. But that's neither here nor there. So I'd been there for about 6 months. And I remember along the way asking a question about like, so what are we doing here? Because it really doesn't seem like we're helping anybody. It seems like our goal is literally, oh, they put in a request, you go talk to them or whatever. But when it comes down to people who you can really probably make some inroads with, you never really have the correct amount of time or, you're never really allowed to talk to them because you're always being rushed to the next person. So Texas put in a law saying that basically every prison had to have a mental health professional to do an assessment for prisoners to make sure that they would not want to hurt themselves. And this was in light of what happened with Sandra Bland. So I'm working there, and one night we get a guy who comes in, and I spoke with him, made sure that he was future oriented. There was no signs that he wanted to hurt himself. Okay. So, well, let me back up a little bit, because this all should come in succession. So, at this time, let me point out, I have dual masters. I have a master's in health administration and a master's in social work. So, the person who was like over all of clinical services was like a nurse who really didn't have that kind of experience, but I guess she'd been at the prison long enough and they gave her the job. And I don't want to turn her professional demeanor into an overall thing, but she just seemed like a really awful person. And one thing I've found in my life is that when people are miserable in their own lives, they tend to like to go to work and disperse that misery on everybody around them. So, it was always like nitpicking things that, in all honesty, didn't matter. It was always like, I get my performance review and I'm like literally maybe point something away from like a perfect score, but then she comes in and is like, oh, well, are you clocking out for lunch on time? Are you clocking out? And it's like, you were a minute off, or you were, and it's like, okay, come on, like, stop nitpicking. You're looking for something. So I don't know if she always felt like her job was in jeopardy or that she could be replaced, but anytime anybody came on who everyone liked and who seemingly was credentialed well enough, she'd do things to drive them out. And I noticed it when one of the other nurses left, who was an amazing nurse, super sweet and kind, and she was just like, I can't take this anymore, I'm sick of it. They had a really high turnover rate despite having great pay. And a lot of it was her. So anyway, back to the situation with this guy. The guy tried to, that evening, the person who came on behind me, the next mental health professional, said, hey, look, check in on this guy, whatever's going on. I had him on observation. I had him being watched because I said, he's future oriented and everything seems cool, but you guys definitely want to continue to round on him. I don't think he needs to be, in the padded room, but I definitely think he needs to be rounded on. So in the rounds, they found that he attempted to hurt himself. Okay. So this lady literally tried to just be like, oh, well, this is all your fault. And I'm like, well, I requested that he be watched. I noted everything. I don't understand where you're coming from. Well, it became like, oh, well, this and that. And it was like a bunch of like very obtuse reasons that had nothing to do with anything. Okay. So then right behind this, okay, so I go back to work, I write the statement, send it off, go back to work. And then at this point, it is flat out like you're being targeted. So I was told to, what was it? I was told to, oh, well, we're taking you and you're going to keep doing what you're doing, but we're not going to have you work on that side. We want you to work in the prison itself where the prisoners are already there and stable. Cool, no problem. But then you say, oh, but you're like basically being put back on probation or something. So then when all is said and done, what happened was I was like, okay, so I don't get it. My performance reviews were almost excellent. This is an incident that I have documentation for, but I'm being put on probation for what? And that's like, there's really no reason for it. But I went along with it, whatever, go along to get along. Well, after this, no, I want to really remember the series of events here. The next thing was, oh, well, you violated the probation because you saw a patient that was, oh my God, they were in medical. They were like in medical. And they were like, you saw a patient, but, you violated because you went into the chart. And I said, wait, and I had to ask this. I was like, so you wanted me to continue to work. You told me to do the job, but then you told me I'm being put, like I violated my probation with you guys because I went into their chart. Where else would I note what I just saw and did? Like, okay, what's the weirdness about this? And at that point, I knew what they were trying to do was basically get rid of me, and that was fine. But I filed a formal complaint with corporate, who then tried to tell me and justify to me that, oh, well, she's right because of this. So let me say this. In any instance where you're dealing with human resources, keep a very good paper trail, because I actually went to see an attorney shortly thereafter, and I optioned going the route of actually suing, because in the end, it's kind of like, again, I could care less about what people think, but I know what my character is, and I am not the type of person to, one, do lackluster work, and two, I'm also not the type of person to knowingly defy an order. But when you write things that are obtuse for the purpose of trying to get rid of others, that usually happens. I will tell you, I worked for CCS for probably 6 months ish, and I think I may have quit I think I want to say, did I quit before? Yeah, I think I optioned because what happened was it was like, oh well, you can return to work on Monday if you can return to work Monday, and I remember telling the human resources lady, that's okay, I'm never returning to work. I'm done. You, I will not go back to this toxic environment. It's unsafe. It's unsafe not in the sense of I don't feel safe around the prisoners. It's unsafe in that it's professionally unsafe. You have some megalomaniac running this place who's doing her best to make everybody's life as miserable as hers. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. And this is again where I speak to you guys about boundaries. Set your boundaries professionally, personally, whatever. Don't let anybody walk over you, and don't let anybody make you feel like you don't know what you're doing when you know that this is what you are qualified to do. I want you guys to please, please, please subscribe, like, share, comment. I love hearing from you. Um, I hope you're having a great week this week. I hope you're not dealing with workplace bullies. Enjoy your week, enjoy your life, love yourself, love somebody else. We'll all be better for it. Have a good one.